All right, 1 second here. All right, welcome everyone. This is Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question came in. A few things I actually want to discuss. One is that question came in and said, if it's a sin to pray with the stain on your shirt, how would a person be permitted to pray if you're at work and your clothes are dirty? Good question. Person, in general, you're going to pray in front of the King of Kings. So you should look impeccable. In other words, whatever you wear should be clean. Right? Definitely should be clean. Shouldn't be stained. We'll just throw this out there. A rabbinic scholar walks outside, stain on their shirt or whatever. And let's say they noticed it. We'll make it easy. They noticed it. They didn't change. Liable for death penalty. You're going to say so severe? Why would it be so severe? Because if you uphold the Torah and you're supposed to keep what the Torah says and do it to such a point where, you represent the Torah. So my language can't look like a shlum. Can't look like a schlep over here. Can't look disheveled or disheveled, I guess. That's how you pronounce it. They're going to say, but I'm all tucked in. I look okay. So to speak, but you got a stain. You got a stain in your shirt. Now, I think everyone would agree it's certainly better to change the shirt. Right? If you're in a place, let's say you can't, you're not going to, you only have a certain amount of time. And that time frame is going to go out the window, meaning that I'm not going to be able to pray if I don't pray at this particular time or whenever it is. And your shirt is dirty. So now, if you could spot clean it, right, 100%, if you could spot clean it, better. Right, certainly better. Right, it's no question. If not, let's say you can't spot clean it. So what should you do? Is it better or not to pray? So maybe some would say it's better not to pray at all. Because you're coming in front of God looking like a slob. No offense. Persons at work, they get dirty, I get it. On the other hand, we would say, okay, it depends. Depends over here. It depends how bad the stain is. I mean, think about it. All right, we'll make a big distinction over here. You come in front of a king. You have a meeting with the president. I don't think it'll be such a great thing today, but, meeting with the prime minister, with somebody of, I don't know, someone's got power. Someone, you want to make a good impression. Are you going to show up with a stain on your shirt? I don't think so. Right? Certainly not. Even, even let's say, you meet somebody famous. Maybe not in our book, but let's say somebody famous. Sports personality, actor, actress, whatever. I'm not going to say you're going to dress up in a 3-piece suit. But one thing for sure, you were, let's say before you met the person, you were eating something, you were eating lunch or whatever, nice ketchup stain on your shirt. You're going to meet the person, the ketchup stain? Probably not. What if you can't change? You got this important meeting, okay? So everyone has to decide what to do for themselves. That you have to decide for yourself. But I would say if you're going in front of the King of Kings, how is it possible to pray in such a way? I would say like this. If you could spot clean it, and it doesn't look as bad, and otherwise you can't pray, then you should pray. If there's no possible way to, there's nothing you can do over here, and it looks really, really bad. Right? So what's the problem? Prayer, my obligation to pray is a Torah obligation. Meaning that there's an obligation to pray to God. Obviously to the right one. Now, everything else is rabbinical. I.e., what I pray is rabbinical. When I pray is rabbinical. How I'm dressed when I pray, right, also, right, most likely rabbinical. Now, again, I'm not just saying, wow, it's just rabbinical, so what? But if I have an obligation from the Torah to pray, and the reality is what I wear, I'm not going to say it's irrelevant. It's not irrelevant. Certainly not irrelevant. You're coming in front of the king, right? The King of Kings. Yeah, you didn't do it the best way. Even if you have an obligation, to pray over here, but you're wearing clothes that's, okay, not so clean, then I would say it's probably still better to pray than not to, if you have no choice. In other words, you can't change the time, that time frame in order to pray is going to go, which means, let's say in the winter, sundown is, 4 o'clock, 4:15, 4:30, whatever it is. You got a stain on your shirt, on your pants, skirt, whatever. You can't change. There's no possible way to clean it properly. You can spot clean it. I don't know if it's going to do the job, but if the person can't pray, otherwise the time's going to pass, then you'll be allowed to pray. Now you're going to say, but really, is it considered a mitzvah? Meaning, is it a sin at the same time? So that's, I don't know if I'd go as far to say. Why? Because what's a mitzvah b'aver? That's if I take a lulav that I stole, not me. Somebody stole a lulav. And now they make the blessing over the lulav. That's a blessing in vain. Right? That's not even a blessing over here. Why? Because you use something that's forbidden to use. You stole it. It's not yours. Right? So that's a sin. So how can you sin over here and do a mitzvah at the same time? You can't. That's forbidden. Gemara says if a person took wheat, stole wheat from someone, ground it up, baked bread, made the blessing, right? It comes from the ground. The bread came from the ground. Gemara says not a blessing, it's disgusting in God's eyes. I don't think a stain on a shirt has the same stats. Now, I'd say it's not a good thing. Definitely not a good thing, but if you have no choice, then that's what you do. Now, I would make one distinction. Let's say a person at work, it's, they're doing difficult work. They're all schwitzy. They're all sweaty. Forget about stain. Let's say there's no stain, just sweat. So that might be a different issue. That, there's an odor. I'm not going to say necessarily forbidden odor, right? If there was a dirty diaper around, you can't pray around that, right? If there's a bad smell. So that, I have other halachic ramifications. What if you are the smell? You yourself are the bad smell. Well, you shouldn't pray then. That's a different issue. Right here, you got a stain on the shirt. I would agree. Not a good thing to pray with a stain on your shirt. But if you have no choice, you can't clean it, spot cleaning it doesn't do it, you're still allowed to pray. But does it go that far to say the mitzvah baba vera, that it's doing a transgression at the same time that's so egregious? No. I wouldn't say it would be the same as if there was body odor or, let's say, a dirty diaper or something. That's different. Because that's being disgusting in God's eyes. In this case, okay, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good thing. I don't think it's got that status. I don't think it has that same status. But a rabbinic scholar, I don't even talk, they have to be, such a big rabbi and this and that. But let's say somebody who learns. Someone's got the status of being a ben Torah. They dress the part, they act the part, and they walk out disheveled. They walk out looking like a slob. Let's say. That's bad. Right? If someone, especially if they're a rabbinic scholar, you got to look impeccable. Right? So there are schools of thought on this. Some people may say, well, it's only external. Yeah, but it's what you represent. Cleanliness is close to godliness. Now, someone will say, I see religious people, they don't look so put together. Some people, it's a problem. If they're a rabbinic scholar, you got to look impeccable. If you don't look impeccable, doesn't mean you're wearing fancy suits, but you can't look like a slob because you represent Torah. Someone says, oh, look, he keeps Torah mitzvahs, look how he's dressed. Now, does that mean that person got a perfect suit? No. And what if they're poor? Story of Rav Shach, he owned one shirt. He's so poor. So what do? You're so poor, you can't afford another shirt. Isn't that, a disservice to God? Isn't that being disgusting in God's eyes? Listen, there were people that were so poor, they had very little. Got a rip in their pants. They couldn't afford other pants. They had to sew them up, put on a patch. Might not have looked great. But if you have nothing, what are you going to do? There are plenty of great rabbinic scholars that were very poor, extremely poor. So, they have older clothes, worn out, still got to pray. Can't afford new clothes, so what do? They have to be presentable. They have to look good. Can't look like a slob. Different levels. I would say, there are different levels. If a person has an old suit, okay, he's got an old suit, so what? I mean, every couple of years, he's going to buy a new suit. It depends. Depends how bad it looks. And if it looks really bad, you got to fix it up somehow. Someone who has a higher position, the stakes are much greater, as we've mentioned before. So if a person represents Torah, yeah, you can't look like a slob. Again, does that mean, I have to be so groomed? I have to look in the mirror for 20 minutes, make sure everything's good. So that would be a Torah prohibition for a guy. You're not allowed to wear women's clothing. That's like what women do. That's fine for women. For a guy, he wants to make sure he doesn't look disheveled, wants to make sure he looks okay, that's fine. But if he's sitting there priming and propping himself for, much longer period of time, that's a problem. Because that's what women do. And that's fine for women, not for men. You want to make sure you look okay, fine. You spend a couple of minutes, look in the mirror, groom yourself, that's fine. More than that, that'd be forbidden. So the question over here is, how would one be permitted to pray is actually a sin? The question is how bad the sin is. Right? That's really the question. I tell you, even if it's a rabbinic scholar and he can't change, and spot cleaning, it just doesn't butter the biscuit, he can still pray in that. Maybe it'll be held more accountable. Maybe. But if someone who's not a rabbinic scholar, okay, we're not going to say it's a good thing. I'm not going to say it's a good thing. Question is, am I allowed to do it? You're allowed to do it. It's certainly better than if a person stole and tried to use that lulav for their own. That's a heck of a lot worse. So we're going to say, well, the rabbinic obligation to pray, fine. 100%. So my Torah obligation, does that also mean I have to be properly groomed 100%? Not necessarily. I should be presentable. Here, I'll say like this, maybe it'll depend how bad it looks. If you take somebody who's a painter, they're in painting clothes, pretty gross. So I would say you should not daven, you should not pray in those type of clothes. Because it's certainly how they look. Now, you might say there are different levels over here. It depends how bad the spot looks. But at the end of the day, even the painter, I would say, if he could change, heck of a lot better to change. If he can't change, then what do we say? Let him pray. Then we're going to let him pray over here. It's, we're not saying it's the best thing he should do. Really, he should change. He doesn't have a change of clothing. He doesn't have a change of clothing. And he's got a spot on his shirt. He can still pray. So, instead of getting, let's say, an A minus, maybe he'll get, a B, for prayer over here. Because the person shouldn't pray with a spot on their shirt or look disheveled. If they did, is their prayer good? Yeah. Only difference is, what if he's a rabbinic scholar? Rabbinic scholar could be his prayer is also good, but he's going to get slammed. Why? Because he has to be impeccable. He has to go beyond, because he represents Torah. He can't look like a slob. Right? The prohibition over here is, someone's a rabbinic scholar. They walk outside with a stain or look disheveled, they can be liable for a death penalty. That is pretty darn severe. Someone points out, okay, use bleach or whatever, but let's say they have no way to clean it. Water can do something. So that's better than nothing. I would say it's definitely better than nothing. It's going to make it look worse, okay? I wouldn't say it. But, you're in a workplace. You're in a workplace, what do? You have no way to clean it. Can't go out to get it cleaned. Can't go out and get bleach. You're stuck. Time's ticking. Right? So you're stuck. We're talking in a case where you're stuck. Now, one other point I'll mention is someone had asked, I think, at the end of the last Q&A, or someone sent me this question. What do? You're not in your own office. You need to pray. I mentioned about taking time off, right? You can only pray, right? During your break. We mentioned this on Tuesday. You go according to the clock. You're clocked in. So if you do anything outside of work when you're clocked in, that could be a total prohibition, stealing from the boss. He doesn't let. If he lets, okay. But here, you want to pray, you got to pray in your own time. Now, the question is, what do you do if you don't have your own office? You don't have an office to pray. It's an open area. It's an open area. So I've seen a number of times. People pray even in an open area. It may look funny, whatever. If you're a Muslim, they just stick down the mat, they pray wherever. To them, doesn't matter. right? And we don't necessarily care about the Muslims. They'll just throw that out there. So I've seen people, let's say sun's going down, they have to pray, they stop on the side of the road. They pray on the side of the road. Then people pray in a bus station. People pray outside. So the reality is, it doesn't matter if you don't have your own office. Find a quiet place if possible, and you pray in public. Right? If you don't have a private place, that's what you should do. Seen people do it. Done it myself. Got stuck. Had to pray on the side of the road. Can happen. Someone there points out, okay, bring in, you can bring extra clothing to work if you know you're going to get dirty. Could be. It's a good piece of advice. Why not? That'll certainly help. But let's say you didn't. You didn't have extra clothing. So what? So now what do you do? It's not a little case you don't have. Right? These are always the best cases. You're stuck. Right? 100% you're stuck over here. So what do? So better to pray than not to pray. That's what I would say. Right here in Israel, you see women praying on buses. Again, Shemon Esrei, they can't stand, they sit, fine. See people praying on buses, praying outside. And I guess, in a non-Jewish culture, it might look a little bit weird, but, if you don't have a closed place where a person works, then you have to pray in an open place. So you just find a place that's less open than other places. If not, you just pray in the open. What does a person do on a plane? Some people say, really, you should only pray in your seat because it disturbs people. Okay, let's say, you stand in the aisle, stand in your seats. You sit in your seat. Okay, you're in a public place. Remember, airport. We got 10 people together. We prayed at the airport. There was no synagogue there. Just had a place. You prayed outside. That's what you do. You got an obligation. You got an obligation. So in this case, if a person works in a messy job, so make sure you have other clothing in case you have to pray. If not, then you're stuck. Again, I would make a little bit of a digression here and say, it really depends how bad it looks. If it's one stain, you can't really clean it that well, whatever. I'm not going to say it's the end of the world. I think if your shirt, your pants, whatever, was like caked on stuff, that might be a little bit different issue. But again, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that would even matter. Why? Even though you stand in front of the King of Kings, you should look impeccable. We're not going to say, well, God, aren't you going to understand? It's not the same thing as if a person stole a lulav, then you make a blessing on the stolen lulav. That's called a mitzvah b'aver. That's doing a transgression the same time you're doing a mitzvah. So here you're doing the mitzvah of praying. You're right. You're doing the mitzvah of prayer. True? You got a stain on your shirt. Does that nullify the mitzvah of prayer? No. Doesn't nullify it. Just means you didn't do it the best way you could have. So what's the transgression for that? I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing, but I would say in this case, if a person had a stain, you can pray with the stain. You're allowed to pray with the stain. You might get a C- instead of a B, the way you pray, because you got a stain. Okay, but you have no other choice. You have no other choice. If there's body odor or, something that stinks, you can't pray there. Even if it's your own body odor. You can't pray there. Right? A person can't pray near a dumpster. If it smells. What about in your own house? If it doesn't smell, it's one thing. Right? You keep it closed. So I could pray next to it or nearby as long as it's closed. Technically, if a person prayed and there was a dirty diaper in a plastic bag, doesn't smell, but you can see it, transparent. You can see it. Am I allowed to pray there? You're allowed to pray there. But you're going to say it's disgusting. You're right. Doesn't smell though. Even if you can see it, it doesn't matter. I would say it's better to put it somewhere else or pray somewhere else. Fine. But if you prayed within a certain distance of that and there's no smell, it's not a problem. Only problem is that there's a smell. That would be the issue. Somebody here asks, a prayer should not be made when in bed. No, you can make a prayer in bed. 100% you can make a prayer in bed. Right? You should be covered. 100% you should be covered. Body parts should be covered. So as long as your body parts are covered, it's okay. A person prays at the beach. Let's say, there's only men there. So yeah, I wouldn't be praying. A person, shouldn't pray just in a t-shirt and shorts. Should have your legs covered. You're gonna tell me some people pray in shorts. Well, they shouldn't. Right? Allah says you shouldn't. If you did, what's the obligation? Are you allowed to or not? Is the prayer good? It's good. Right? So over here, we're saying the same thing. I didn't do it in the optimal way, per se. But I didn't necessarily do it in such a forbidden way. It nullifies the prayer itself. If a person prayed in a place where there's a bad smell, that's a different issue. Because that nullifies what you've done. That, you're not allowed to pray nearby, as long as there's a smell. That's a different issue. Here, I didn't do necessarily the right thing, doesn't necessarily mean I nullified the mitzvah. So over here, someone asks, okay, can you pray? Can you say a prayer when you're in bed? Yeah, 100%. If you're injured, you're sick, right? Certainly. But again, body parts should be covered. 100% should be covered. Can a Jew pray in the cell with the toilet? Good question. Good question. Definitely better not. Definitely better not. What if that's the only place to pray? What do you do in such a case? So you can pray in a corner, your back to the toilet, and pray there if you have no choice. Right, that you could do. But it's certainly better not. Again, we're talking about a case you have no choice. If you have a choice, certainly better not to. But, that's why, certainly in the bathroom, we'll just throw this out there while we're on the topic. You can't have Torah thoughts in the bathroom. So you can't read Torah in the bathroom. Now, what about if it's the bathroom with a shower? Is that the same status of a regular bathroom? Yeah, we hold it is. We hold the same status. If it's just the bathroom, I'd say it's a little bit worse in that sense. But if it's in a certain way, it's a little bit better that there's a shower there, but it still has the same status. Still can't think Torah in that room. That would be forbidden. So in that case, is it better to pray in the cell? If you put your back to the Torah, you put your back to the cell, to the toilet, I could pray. As long as nothing disgusting in the toilet. Forgot to make that clear. Nothing disgusting in the toilet. That's fine. Right? That's what I would say about that. Somebody asks, isn't it heresy? Right? We'll see if I'm a heretic over here. Isn't it heresy? Well, maybe I should let someone else answer the question and not me, because now this is about me. Right? So question is it heresy? Is it heresy if I would say, or any rabbi would say, we'll use me because they use me as an example. Coffman 615 commandment of don't be a moron. Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. Right? Is that heresy? Why would that be heresy? Right? Let's analyze. What does the Rambam say is heresy? Whether they make a joke about it, okay. It's not heresy. Well, you could argue maybe it shouldn't be said. I think people think it's funny, but what is heresy? Heresy is if a person says the entire Torah is true except for one verse, or that the Torah is not true, or they make up a new religion, or they deny any of the miracles in the Torah. They deny Moshe Rabbeinu. They go against the 13 principles of faith. Any of the 13 principles of faith of the Rambam. That's heresy. Now you can repent for that. Saying the 615th commandment of don't be a moron, okay, it's a joke. It's not heresy. I mean, it's heresy over here. Right? Or if I would play God, right? Obviously a reference to George Burns. I know you've ever seen George Burns movies about him playing God, put on my funny mustache, my funny glasses, right? Right? Is that heresy? It's not heresy. Definitely not heresy. Are they allowed? Why isn't it allowed? Right? Making a point over here. Person says something or does something that's foolish. Whatever it is. Make a statement that makes no sense. They can think whatever they want. It doesn't make sense. They believe it, whatever it is. Right? So, someone's going to say, well, isn't there a fine line between heresy and jokes? Why? Again, define what is heresy. Heresy, right, is saying things that the Torah doesn't say, or doing things against what the Torah says, depending on what it is. Not everything a person does that's forbidden makes him a heretic. Right? A Jew desecrates Shabbos willingly, even if they don't know anything. They have a status in many ways as a non-Jew. No matter what they know or what they don't know. Now, somebody does something that's stupid, goes against what God wants, but it makes no sense in many different ways. Can't say it's stupid. Why can't I say it's stupid? If certainly, we'll make it very easy. If I want to right now, take any reform or conservative Jew, progressive, whatever you want to call them. They don't know anything about anything. They know nothing. Am I allowed anytime I want, according to the laws of Lashon Hara? Am I allowed anytime I want to sit there and disparage them, make fun of them, and say whatever I want against them? Am I allowed to do such a thing? So what's the answer? I'm allowed to. Why am I allowed to? Because technically speaking, if they have the status of a non-Jew, I can say whatever I want. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing to do on a regular basis, but what's the heter? Why is it permissible? Because they're not doing Maisa Amcha. They're not part of your people. They do foolish things. I can make fun of that to make a point. Give an example. Somebody tells me, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, some synagogues, you have to have a ticket to get in. Okay? So they told me, well, if I pay more money, I get closer to the air conditioner. So I said, well, I got a great idea. Why don't you just take a portable air conditioner, pop it down to it? They're like, you're very cynical. I said, you just told me. And again, I'm talking about somebody who doesn't believe in anything. How do I know? Because I know. I'm a prophet. I know these things. They don't believe in anything. They transgress everything in the Torah. They don't know anything. So they come along and say, the more money I pay, the closer I get to the AC. You know what Rosh Hashanah is all about? It's all about judgment. Read a Rosh Hashanah prayer book. It's all about judgment. Who by fire, who by water. It's judgment of the entire world, all mankind. Now, someone makes a statement like that. I don't have to be a rabbi for this. Someone makes a statement like that, and they say, well, the more money I pay, the closer I get to the AC. Think about what the person's saying. Does that make any rational sense? No. It sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? It sounds like the person's a fool. It's what it sounds like. So you're just calling them out. That's heresy? It's not heresy. You might argue maybe it's not a good thing to do, maybe it's Lashon Hara. That you might have a claim on. But if it's permissible, it's permissible. Say what I want. Make a joke about it. Idolatry. Am I allowed to speak about idolatry? Anytime I want. I can make fun of it. I can kick it. I can do whatever I want. You know why? Permissible. Not only that, it's recommended. Why is it recommended? The show's got no power. The show's got zero power. Now, if I wanted to make a point and show how secular Jews are foolish in so many different ways, in order to make a point, I'm not allowed to do that? Why am I not allowed to do that? First of all, I'm not mentioning the person by name. No one will ever figure out who it is anyway. So it's like a straw man. Why is that not permitted? If you're doing it to make a point, now I want to make sure people understand these, whatever it is that I made fun of, the person's a fool. Because they're not doing what God wants. It's not heresy. I'm not saying what this person does is necessarily heretical. Could be. By default, could be. But doesn't make me a heretic for saying that. I mean, I do think there is an entertainment value here. In a certain way, but it doesn't make it forbidden. Just the opposite. I want to make sure people don't do foolish things like some people do. Like someone will say, I go to synagogue and that rabbi is supposed to entertain me. That's what I'm there for. Now you can say, okay, that's very nice. I have to respect that. Sounds kind of idiotic. The person saying, well, it's like Hollywood. Going to synagogue is like Hollywood. I'm there to be entertained. Sounds kind of silly, doesn't it? You're going to say, well, at least they go to synagogue. Okay, that's a positive thing. Maybe. If they're getting any spirituality out of it. But someone said such a thing. What should your answer be? I should keep quiet, not say anything? No, I want to make a point. I want to make a point that person's an absolute fool. Especially going to such a synagogue. Synagogue is there to pray. You're there to draw close to God. What are you telling me? You're supposed to be entertained. What the rabbi is supposed to be like Monty Hall? Let's make a deal. Like a game show. Okay, rabbi's going to get up and speak. Maybe, the Gemara says, get up and you start off with a joke. You ease people. And then you hammer them. Then you give mussar. But you're going to open them up a little bit. Right? So I would love to say a lot of these things that I do say, and I've heard either firsthand or from other people, most likely firsthand. And I'm just covering up because I don't want to show who it is. There's nothing wrong with that because it makes a point. It makes a point how a fool, when it comes to Torah, they spit in God's face. They sound like idiots. That's what they sound like. He's calling them out. Someone says to you, I go to synagogue to be entertained. I think that's kind of problematic to say. I think, it's bad in many levels. I don't have to go into it. It's bad on many levels. If I call that out and make fun of it, that's heresy. Why is it heresy? It's not heresy. I want people to see it for what it is. I want to expose it. I'm not going to expose it every second of every class. But I want people to see the fallacy in what it is. So they'll never make the same mistake and go down such a wrong path. Had a rabbi, quote unquote, Friday nights, Shabbos day, whenever he gave his sermon, would quote Moreno Vorabeno, Hagon Atzadi Dennis the Menace. Come on, I would have quoted the Wizard of Oz. I would have quoted Doonesbury, maybe, Calvin and Hobbes. I was a big fan of Calvin and Hobbes back in the day. You quote Dennis the Menace. You kind of say, come on, he's using a parable. Maybe I shouldn't make fun of that. But you're in a holy place. You're in, even I have my limits. If I'm in the synagogue, I'm speaking from the pulpit. Yeah, I'm not going to quote Dennis the Menace. I'm also not necessarily going to say, if I was playing God, this, that. Depends where, what. Yeah, so I'm going to call off this quote-unquote rabbi quote, Dennis the Menace. Do me a favor. Am I there to be entertained? Or am I there to pray, to draw close to God? Right? So you can say, how can you make fun of this rabbi? First of all, he's not a rabbi. Second of all, he doesn't know very much. Third of all, he is a heretic. Says the Rabbi Chaim explicitly, I'm allowed to say whatever I want against the heretic. Call him out, make fun of him, anything I want. Now, should I do it on a regular basis? I'm not saying I should. Is it good for me to do it? I don't know. Maybe it's good therapy. Maybe. But it's absolutely permissible. When a person says, well, isn't that heresy? Well, you know what heresy is? Heresy means I deny God. God forbid. Heresy is you say that the Torah is not true. God forbid. One verse from the prophet's not true. God forbid. Rambam's got a whole list. Right? So, certainly, these things don't make me a heretic by any stretch. Is it permissible to say? Depends on the context. If I want to show someone's a fool and that no one should follow that path, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I've heard great rabbis say all kinds of things. All kinds of things to make a point. My Rebbe will say many times, someone who's not holding by Torah mitzvahs, they're animals. They live like animals, they die like animals. You see how they live their lives. Is that heresy? No. Certainly not heresy. It's calling the spade a spade. He's telling it the way it is. He says these people who are fools. They're willing to give up their portion of the next world for what? Like good old Uncle Asaph, a bowl of lentils. For strength, for this, for that, they don't care. Doesn't mean anything to them. So they're animals. Oh, I can't call them animals? Why can't I call them animals? How do they live their lives according to Torah? They don't. And anyone who doesn't live their lives according to Torah, they're just more intelligent animals. That's all they are. They go according to their own base desires. Now, you call that out. Is that heresy? It might not be politically correct. That's for sure. And a person like that tells it the way it is. Go listen to classes from Victor Miller, blessed memory. He didn't pull any punches. I read something the other day. It's hilarious. Talking about kashrus, Parsha Shmini. And he met somebody, I don't know, non-Jew, whatever. It was a non-Jew who's talking about eating oysters, right? Oysters and milk and how slimy they are, right? He's saying, they're slimy now, whatever, the whole thing. So Victor Miller said, yeah, it sounds like an unbelievable thing. It sounds like you're taking your snot, you're eating it with milk. And the Rabbi Victor Miller said, you want to tell me Victor Miller was a heretic? Come on. He's making it very graphic. Very, very graphic. Right? Might not be popular to say, but people who eat shrimp, you know what shrimp is? A lot of people eat it. They dress it up, all kinds of things. You know what shrimp really is? It's a scavenger of the ocean. It's like a cockroach of the ocean. It's what it is. People eat it. Kind of disgusting. I mean, anyone ever eat oysters? You got worms in it, other things. Yeah, it's pretty slimy, pretty gross. So Victor Miller says, like eating snot. That's what it's like. You want to tell me that's heresy? It just means I'm politically correct. I have to respect people that, I have to respect people that eat garbage. Why? And why is that heresy? Why in the world is that heresy? It's not heresy. And people who go against Torah, it's a mitzvah. It's a total mitzvah to deride them and make fun of them. So that's heresy? Not at all. I'm not saying anything against the Torah. When I say, if I put on my George Burns glasses, if I was God, yeah, when you speak about repentance, if I were playing God, I'd zap everybody for spitting in my face, even Orthodox Jews. If I were playing God, but I'm not. So what was the whole point of saying that I'll say that when it comes to repentance, because repentance is a miracle. And if a person spits in God's face, day in and day out, doesn't God get sick of it? Why does he allow you to repent? If I were playing God, and that's the whole point, if I were playing God, I'd zap everybody. That's how you respect me? That's how you serve me? That's what you do? Yeah, it's an example. Does that make me a heretic? Did I deny anything in the Torah? No. Yeah. Someone asked, prohibition of eating milk and meat applied to Noahites. Nope. That we don't apply. Why not? Because the laws of milk and meat do not make any rational sense. Why does it make rational sense? Because I have something that's permitted. I have milk that's permitted. I have meat that's permitted. I put them together, makes it forbidden. Why? We don't know. We don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make rational sense. Totally doesn't make rational sense. Anything that does not make rational sense won't apply to a non-Jew. Right? It's hard enough to imagine why it applies to a Jew. Certainly won't apply to a non-Jew. What should a JIT do, Jew in training, to ensure his ritual clean to pray? Well, you got to make sure you don't have to use the bathroom. That's one thing. If a person has to go to the bathroom, you can't pray. Right? Yeah, it's Torah prohibition. You have to, a person has to go to the bathroom, you have to go. Right? You don't waste time. You have to make sure you're clean, you're presentable. Right? You wash your face. Person says you wash your face, wash your hands. Right? That's good. And you got to try and clear your mind. It's also good. More than that, you got to make sure the place you're praying does not have any issues. No bad smells. No idolatry around. Whatever. It should be a closed room if possible. No, it should have a window. I mean, it doesn't have a window, you can still pray there, but it's only good to have a window there. But I don't know, anything else? The most important thing, making sure your body's clean. But I would say you have to make sure your thoughts are clean. You just got to clear out your mind before you pray. That's not such an easy thing. Right? Now, someone asked, so how do you know? Maybe someone unclean. Let's say, there's a question. Person eats bread. Let's say you got bread from the store. Whatever it is. How do you know the person making the bread washed their hands before? A Jew. Right? He's got to wash his hands in the morning. You can say he probably washed his hands out of cleanliness anyway. But what if he didn't? Am I allowed to eat the bread? Am I allowed to eat it? Do I have to worry about somebody, by a non-Jew, they touch the faucet, it doesn't make it unclean. You can still use it. It's not an issue. Right? And what about a Jew? Same thing. Doesn't make it impure. Totally doesn't make it impure. It doesn't do anything to it. Again, you got to make sure, your body's clean, your clothes are clean, your thoughts are clean. I would think those are the most important. That I would say is the most important things. Somebody asks, one second here. Someone asks, Jewish co-worker speaks Lashon Hara. Bashes the kosher rabbi due to ignorance, being too modern. Should I disassociate with the individual? Yeah, you should make a protest. Say it's not true, whatever. And if you see the person's not going to change, you should give them rebuke to a certain extent. And if they don't listen, then yeah. You got to be careful who you speak to. I don't think there's any question. But listen, if you have, you can have everybody that you work with. You can't speak to anybody. It's okay. You have to have some sort of communication. Hi, how are you? Like, that's it. I mean, you have to be best friends with them or have that much contact. It's better, these type of people. We don't have so much contact. 100%. If you can't, so again, if you can't change their minds, it could be the more you try and give them rebuke, the more they're just going to bash, right? And speak Lashon Hara. But it doesn't mean you just stand by, don't do anything, right? In other words, someone's going to try and discredit a righteous rabbi, claim these rabbis are not educated. Again, most people are not open-minded. They're not open-minded. We don't claim to be open-minded either. But, they make over generalizations that aren't true. They're not educated. What does that mean, not to be educated? Right? I mean, we can break down all these things. I'm educated. I have an Ivy League degree. So, well, that doesn't mean anything. Seen plenty of educated people act like animals. That doesn't change. So what? What does it mean they're educated? Right? Oh, he doesn't have a degree. So having a degree, well, what's it worth? How much is it worth to have a degree? I mean, I could get picayune in all these details. But again, a lot of times it's probably a waste of time. It doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that, it should make some sort of protest. I know, there are people in England that love the chief rabbi of England. Chief rabbi of England is a pretty big heretic in a lot of different ways. Not the topic for now, right? I know some people hate a certain rabbi, and they'll say, come on, this rabbi is well respected, this and that. And this other rabbi is a fanatic, and he bashes this and he bashes that. And are you going to convince the person? No, you're not going to convince the person, right? But you can make one very simple point. You're going to say, well, this chief rabbi says it's okay to teach homosexuality in yeshivas. Now, you got to clarify what he meant. Did he really say what he meant? Whatever. That's what he said. Now, my Rebbe bashed him unbelievably. Why? Because he's a chief rabbi. Now, if he's the chief rabbi, doesn't he represent Orthodox Jewry? So how can an Orthodox Jewish rabbi say teaching homosexuality in schools is okay? Not the worst thing he said, but there are plenty of other things. My rabbi sat there and bashed him, totally bashed him. And he should be bashed. I don't care if it's a political position. You represent Torah. You're going to say it's okay according to Torah to be a homosexual and to teach it to your kids, to teach it to schools? Yeah, that's heresy. That 100% is heresy. So, okay, that's okay. Now, this person may say, well, you have to have more of an open mind. And he's an open mind. Well, you're going to argue with them. You made your point. That's it. You move on. Get in, get out. You want to add other things the person said, why you don't hold by him? Okay. Is that person going to listen? Nah, these other people, they're fanatics. They don't have education. Yeah, this person's got education. Big deal. And he's telling you to teach what the Torah calls an abomination, the act itself. And he says it's okay to teach kids. That's okay? That person might say, yeah, it is. Because that they're so open-minded. So you bring 2-3 proofs against the person. It's not going to move them because they don't care. They're just going to say, oh, you're a fanatic. And this rabbi's a fanatic. That didn't answer the question. See, people are very quick to say what you are, what this rabbi is, what someone else is, but they don't answer the question. Are you allowed to teach that topic in yeshivas according to the Torah? Is it a good thing according to the Torah? What do you do with Leviticus chapter 18, verse 21, 22? It says it's an abomination. How can you teach it? How can you teach it in yeshiva? It's a problem. Big problem. Oh, you're a fanatic. How open-minded do I have to be until my brains fall on the floor? You're not going to call that out. Why in the world would you call that out? You say, I hold by him and this and that. Okay, we hold he's a heretic. I can find 10 statements he's made that are bad, that are really bad. Right? Oh, I don't want to hear that. Your rabbi's such a fanatic, and he says this and he says that. Okay. So so you think he's a fanatic. Where are we going with this conversation? Nowhere. You can disagree with him, it's fine. You think he's going off the deep end, he's not politically correct? He doesn't have to be politically correct. You just don't like what he says. Fine. You're not a heretic by any stretch. If he calls you an animal, you just eat and drink and do whatever animals do, and you have no morality. That's not heresy. It's calling what it is. Oh, but you want to be more open-minded? Okay, it's your choice. But I got this issue, that issue, the other issue with this rabbi. But they're not going to answer you. That's the point. They're not going to answer you. They're going to say, but this other rabbi is such a fanatic, blah, blah, blah. So how do you explain what this other rabbi says? How do you explain a rabbi brings a sex therapist to speak in the synagogue? You can't explain that. There's no way to explain stupid. That's stupid. Bring in a sex therapist? Come on. Bring in a missionary to speak? It's beyond. Speak about this for days. It's stupidity. Person not a rabbi is an idiot. Call him out. Coffman would say, I wouldn't even let this person speak out of a toilet. Yeah, that's how bad it is. Want to call me a heretic for that? Call me a heretic. Good luck. Tell me what the Rambam says. The laws of repentance, what heresy is, and you see if these statements compare. So yeah, in this case, there are people you work with, or maybe family members you have to stay away from as much as possible. Because nothing good comes out of these conversations. I've had certain conversations with people, I just get in and out. Oh, but he said, yeah, whatever. Move on. You're not even going to have the conversation. You know why? Because the person is going to slam left and right. They don't care. They're not going to listen. They're totally not going to listen. So, no point. Doesn't mean you don't have to give rebuke per se. Should give rebuke. Oh, he's not educated. Oh, you've gone through the Talmud before. Mm-hmm. You've gone through this book, that book, and the other things. Well, what's education here? Very easy to answer these things up. But again, depends who you're talking to. And I would venture, since we're, we are recording this, I would say 99% of the people are never going to give you an argument. They're going to be like missionaries, go on to the next thing and just say how much this person's a fanatic or whatever. Oh, and he says that. I can't. You're not answering the question. So yeah, people like that, you stay away from them. Someone who's a Noahide, took a Noahide oath. Right? He's been concerned because apparently she took on way more things than she has to do. All right. Yeah. Noahides don't have to take oaths unless it's in Israel. And it doesn't apply. You're right. Because we don't have a Jubilee year. Now, I got in trouble for saying this, but I'll say it anyway. And that is, to take an Noahide oath, okay, it's worth something for the person. Because the person, wants to take it seriously. So they make this oath in front of a rabbinical court. They can do it outside of Israel also. Because there's no status to Ger Toshav today. But you can make an oath. You can make an oath. Now, why would a person make an oath? Because they want to show they're taking it seriously. Okay. Does it have any value outside of that? Okay, I take it to a rabbinical court, in Israel, what are they going to do for me? What are they going to do for me? They say, okay, very good. They're going to send you on your way. Doesn't mean a whole lot. It means a lot to the person, right? I'm going to be careful here. It means that, if a person wants to do it, you don't have to. It might be good to do it in front of a couple witnesses to declare you're taking on the Noahide laws. Going in front of a rabbinical court, absolutely no obligation. None. Only by a Ger Toshav doesn't apply today. Now, if a person wants to do it and they get this piece of paper, they put it in a frame, they put it on the wall, okay? They can do that. My question is that worth that much? That person it is. Fine. Does it have any other value outside of that? In Jewish law? No. But it has value for the person, okay? I'm not saying the person can't do it. So it's valuable for them, but not for anything else. Okay? So that doesn't apply, right? Right? So now the rabbi told her she has to keep kosher. She took an oath. Who says? Come on, who are these rabbis? Call them out. Who says the non-Jew has to keep kosher? She took an oath. Took an oath of the no-hide laws. Who says part of the no-hide laws is keeping kosher? We just said that. No keeping kosher by the no-hide laws. So why does she feel guilty over here? She feels guilty, she doesn't keep kosher. Send her to me, not a problem. She doesn't have to keep kosher, she can eat as much shrimp as she wants. Not a problem at all. Second question. Son has a girlfriend, they have a sexual relationship. Oh, keep this clean. Do they have to live together? Are they allowed for a no-hide relationship? Now, technically, if they live together, according to the Rambam, that's called marriage. He disappears, he walks out, she walks out, that's considered divorce. Right? Do they have to live together? I mean, technically, a non-Jew, marriage is considered they live together. Right? What in some states we call common law marriage. They live together. Right? Do they have to live together? No. They don't have to live together, per se. They can be together, doesn't mean they have to live together. They certainly don't have to be married according to civil law. Are condoms allowed in no-hide relationships? So there's an obligation for non-Jews to have children. There's an obligation to perpetuate the world. Now, can they prevent having children? They can. Not necessarily considered spilling seeds, right? Let's say they had kids, every 5 years. So is that considered spilling seed? No. For a Jew, a different issue. Only certain types of contraception are permissible. But for a non-Jew, it should be okay. Not necessarily considered spilling seed. Right? For a Jew, different issue. Right? The son sinning because they don't live together. No. That doesn't mean they have to live together. I'm just saying the status of marriage for a non-Jew is living together. If they don't live together, then the question is it a forbidden relationship? Right? If it's a forbidden relationship, that's a different issue. If it's not a forbidden relationship, then I would say it's okay, even if they don't live together. It's just maybe as a moral imperative. It's not a good thing. Spoke about this on Tanakh Talk, about moral imperatives. That's one of them. That's one of them. Right? I would say it's a moral imperative. I don't want to say it's more than that. What about Tikkun Abrit? So you could tell me that spilling seed for a non-Jew should be forbidden, because we see by Er and Onan, sons of Yehuda, they weren't Jewish. Right? The difference of opinion over here. There's a major difference of opinion whether we say it's forbidden or not. So, so I would say that even if you want to say, according to some, maybe it's okay, right? Nonetheless, maybe the moral imperative, it's not good. But there are those that say it's okay. It's not forbidden. Right? So the first part of the question is, forget about the oath. Forget about keeping kosher. Non-issue. Definitely a non-issue. And even if they made an oath, so what? It just means they're going to try and uphold the no-hide laws to the best of their ability. That's all it means. Now, if they do something wrong and they're liable for a death penalty, they can always repent. There's repentance. Right? But here, sexual relationships seemingly are okay as long as it's not a forbidden relationship. If it's a forbidden relationship, different issue. Then you get into all these other, all these other type of relationships and masturbation, these other things. So again, masturbation is a big issue. It's a big issue by non-Jews, whether it's permissible or not. Some say yes, some say no. But again, I would say it's a moral imperative, probably not a good thing. But if you hold it's permissible, then it's okay. Is there a limit to what Noahites can eat? Yeah, except for they can't eat a limb from a live animal. Right? In other words, they can't, they can't, the animal has to be dead before they eat it. If they eat it before he dies, or they eat part of it before he dies, that could be a total prohibition, right? Eating a limb from a live animal. But can they eat ants? 100%. Can they eat cockroaches? Yeah. Can they eat monkey brains? I don't know. That might be an issue, only because you're causing pain to the animal, right? It can be considered cruel, but mostly anything they can eat as long as it's not a limb from a live animal. That's what we would say. Someone asks, someone says, they're going to put on the richest driver's class and play me. Okay, you can try and do that. You can try and do that. It's fine. Poultry and cheese is forbidden, yes. Right, because we hold that milk and meat, right, really the total prohibition is kosher meat and kosher milk, i.e. red meat. But poultry also be forbidden. Why? Because a person may forget and eat red meat. So that would be forbidden. Conservative under Jewish family to convert after 7 years valid today. No slavery today. Right? Someone pointed out one of my last classes, slavery stopped in Saudi Arabia like 1982 or something. I don't know, it could be. Right, but we don't have slaves today. We don't have slaves today, so that doesn't apply. Yeah, any other questions? Don't worry, it takes a lot to offend me. So, we're good. I'm just having fun over here. Yeah, any other questions? Someone there points out, according to Sparta, we talked about clothes when you pray. So according to Ravaji Yosef, he claims that someone who's wearing a short sleeve shirt, covered to the elbows, permitted to be the chazan, to be the one who leads the service. Sleeves are shorter, the arms uncovered, let's say between the shoulder and the elbow. Then he can pray per se, but not necessarily lead the congregation. But he says if you're praying alone, technically you could wear short sleeves. That'd be allowed to do. He also says, it's also brought down, permitted to pray in shorts. Says the Shut Chavez does, but shorts are not respectable enough to be permitted for the one leading service, right? Right. Because you normally wouldn't greet any distinguished official while wearing shorts. True. Right. So it'd be a question if you're allowed, technically, if you'd be allowed to pray in it in general, that would be an issue. Right. But the other issue is about serving as the leader. Yeah, that would be a major issue. That I would hear be a major issue. So I want to thank you for that clarification. Someone says that one who prolongs his prayer is praiseworthy. First, the one who prolongs his prayer does not expect it to be answered. Okay. So the question is, should one pray with an attitude expecting one's prayer not to be answered? Well, I'll say like this, that one of the worst things the person can do is think that they prayed and they prayed so well that God's going to answer them. That the punishment is extremely severe. It's called iyun tefillah. Iyun tefillah means is like, your person says, I prayed so well, God's going to answer my prayer. Well, God's going to open every file and say, why should I answer your prayers over here? You think you're so great? Let's see where you're holding in the world. Right? Do we expect God to answer our prayers? I don't see why not. We do pray that God should answer our prayers, whether it's livelihood, whether it's, illness, different things. We do expect God to answer our prayers. But guess what? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he says no. Or maybe he wants to squeeze you more, or, whatever. Right? So should we expect our prayer not to be answered? No. Why shouldn't God answer our prayers? Now, does that mean when we pray 100% God's going to answer us straight away? Doesn't mean that either. God's got a lot of patience also. And he may want to see how sincere we are. Right? But, God can do anything. God can change anything at any time. In the blink of an eyelash. So why shouldn't we think God can answer our prayers? Now, doesn't mean that we're going to get exactly what we want, not necessarily. Not necessarily. But yeah, why are we praying in the first place? You're going to say, because I'm obligated. But if we're asking for health and for livelihood and redemption, spiritual redemption, all these things, don't we expect God to say, yeah, I want to help you with this? We're not necessarily going to pray if he doesn't think it's going to get answered. But it doesn't mean God's going to answer you straight away. Someone asked, read an article, Red Heifer was born in Israel. Now verify that is indeed red. Not sure. Not sure. And even if it is, as long as it's not worked and this and that, yeah. So when the Messiah comes and it's saved, and it gets saved and it gets used, okay, but it could be. I don't know. I have to look into it. To see if it's, see if it's really true. But even if it is, so we don't have a temple, can't use it. We got to make sure, that it shouldn't be worked, it shouldn't be used, and all that, just in case the Messiah comes, to use it properly. Yeah, I'm gonna stop there. This is every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, you can find me at Rabbi Chaim Coffman on Facebook, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. Send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Looks like I'm going to do Tanakh talk tonight, hopefully, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So it's still going to continue on crazy things in Talmud against non-Jews. So it should go for that. Otherwise,